Thank you very much, sir. So welcome to this week's TOC. We've got a few bits on the agenda. So we've got the standing items of reviewing actions from last week and reviewing outstanding PRs. Then Chris, I was hoping you could give us a little update on the distinctive name for the CF on Kubernetes efforts and how that went down at last week's working group meeting, or maybe there's nothing really to say on that one yet, in which case it'd be nice and quick.
Yeah, we chatted with them about at the meeting, and there's been a decent amount of activity on the CF Kate's dev. I think they're down to a short list, so I haven't looked at that yet this week. Yeah, certainly look at that. But they're making progress. So
cool. Then we've got Greg for some updates for us from the App Runtime interfaces, and then space for any other business. Has anyone got anything that they'd like to add? No? Okay, cool. So looking at the actions from last week, so the first one was for me to chase and check in on the YAML in the machine parsable working groups for accessibility. I did chase on that and I got a response of, we're really snowed under at the minute and there's lots of people off, so we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So I'm going to carry that over as one for next week. Chris, how did it go with LF Legal and moving Credhub over?
I haven't heard back yet.
Okay.
So, but yes, David and I are both, I think, under the assumption that they're probably not going to allow us to move it over with that proprietary license intact. So it'll probably stay where it is, but that is a good reminder to ping them again, just to get final word on that.
Okay, cool. Also, did you find out anything on the accessibility requirements that we need to support?
Well, no, but I think reflecting on this a bit more, like I think that would be best served on the website. Like right now, I've got the website linking to all of the separate charters for the working groups as a single source of truth, but there might be a better way to do that, right? Have like a static web page that has this, that shows all the information in this repository that's automatically updated. Yeah. And that web page would have HTML, of course, and then would be a lot easier to deal with as far as accessibility. I think that's probably what the answer is here. And so yeah, in the next few months, when have time to really dig into the website a bit more, I think that would be a really worthwhile project. You know, as of now, it's pointing to those charters, which is good, but I think there's a better way to display all that information.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So actually that could work and feed multiple things at the same time. So that'd be a pretty good one. Okay, cool. Stephan, I did see some work on the CF deployment working group PR. Are we ready to merge on that one?
I would say yes. I added the colleagues from VMware who want to participate in this working group. That's very good.
Okay, cool. I will just post that in the chat as well for everyone in here.
I think we have 4 approvals and 1 by a comment
yes.
from Eric. So I would say we merge it. Then
press the button then, sir.
It is merged. Cool. 1 new working group. I would then check tomorrow with Jochen and add him to the working group. What is it? GitHub team, so that he can start to work. And probably if there are any questions, I would maybe reach out to you, Chris, if we don't know what to do. And we will probably start with a Slack channel and setting up a meeting and then go from there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
And David's action has obviously been done because Greg's here. So that one's nice and easy.
I even reminded him once. That's pretty serious follow through.
True.
Cool. So with reviewing outstanding PRs, the first one we have got is update service management approvers list. I have actually asked if there's going to be any side effects because there's a removal in here.
Hey, Lee, I didn't understand. I'm not sure what your question refers to. Like, the person we are removing is someone from SAP, from the team that supports Service Fabric, and they have left the team.
Okay. It was more because when you're removing people, it could be someone that actually they were the only person with access, or there was some side effect that was an unintended. But if you've covered that, I think that's all good to go then in that case.
Yes, this is just removing from the list that we have in the service group, and there's no automation or anything that picks up that. So
cool. So
yes, thank you. I'm
happy with that one, and you're in the position to merge this as the working group tech lead.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Well, that one's nice and easy. Then the next one we've got is Ruben's, which is the switching to GitHub auth app and turning off the dry run. I think we're good to go on that one now, or Ruben is anyway, whenever he's ready on there. I've let him know that the preceding PR has been merged, and he's given the celebratory hooray emoji. So I guess he'll just get around to that when he's ready, and the automation can start to kick in. Okay. And then machine parsable working groups, that's the one that I'm waiting on the accessibility side. So as soon as I've got an update, I'll update on the PR on that one. But it sounds like with Chris's thinking that we'll be fine to go ahead, merge it in, and then use something else to transform it into something that's more human friendly. Okay. Cool. And we did cover very briefly the update on the distinctive name. So that is happening and things are being whittled down. Do we have any idea when that group's likely to present some options to us, or how that's going to fit with the timeline of the beta?
Lots of things are about to happen. So next week, there's a Cloudfoundry governing board meeting, and I need to follow up with the CF4Kates folks, but someone will be presenting on CF4Kates at that meeting. But I presume at that point we'll have some sort of a short list we can share with the board and talk about what they might think about that. But maybe next Tuesday's meeting for the TOC, we could take a look at a short list that they have. I'll follow up with them about the board meeting today just to make sure I know who's actually going to be presenting. Lee, also, while we're here, you'll have updates for them from the TOC for the last couple months. Great.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there's of course a CF4Kates working group meeting next Tuesday as well. So hopefully next week, hopefully we can get a lot of progress on that and get a sense of the timeline for this.
There's one thing that came up there's that moderately long thread discussing some candidate names. I know like Giuseppe and some of the other folks were interested in doing at least some like lightweight preference voting on that list. And I raised the idea that, we had used that, I think, Cornell implementation of the CIVS system for the last TOC election, found it to be a little clunky. I think in the meantime, there's been this Electo project that has come up that implements the same system, but you can host it, I guess, on Kubernetes, or might be interesting to try to run it on CF even, I don't know, that integrates with GitHub so people can just sign in with their GitHub identity instead of doing some weird dance with their email addresses that goes to spam half the time. I don't know if that'd be simple enough to set up in time for this, but that might be also something for us to be thinking about setting up in advance of May or whenever we need to hold the next round of TOC elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to proceed as far as who should name this thing. There's not a clear nothing in the charter or bylaw about who should be naming projects, but the working group on some level. But it's also, this is an important project for the overall ecosystem, and so I assume the board and the TOC would also want to have some input in that, and may want to pull in marketing people, or so. Well, yeah, we'll see.
I think, yeah, generally it seems like we're going to want consensus on any name that we do pick.
Absolutely.
So maybe if we can all find one that we're reasonably happy with.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one. Okay. I can't spell, so there we are. That's all. Yeah, autocorrect will fix that one. Okay, cool. So at this point, Greg, over to you.
All right. Well, I haven't really prepared any presentation or anything like that in particular. So I guess I'm mostly here to stand before the firing line. I guess kind of my overall perspective on how things are going is things are mostly going pretty slowly. I think people are still mostly relying on how they were working before the introduction of the new governance model. I guess as far as infrastructure in place, we have a Slack channel where most of the people in the working group are members of the Slack channel. We have a wide collection of GitHub teams that have most of the teams have most of the people on those teams on them. There's still, as of the last time I went to add people to those teams, there are still some people who didn't appear to be in the Cloudfoundry organization. I don't know if that's changed now. I haven't done that. I haven't looked at that in a week or so, so that may have changed. And then those teams don't yet have all of the projects associated with them either. So we have some teams that have most of the people and some of the projects associated with them, which means that presumably these people still are maintaining their own teams or other access mechanisms for getting access to those repositories. Of the repositories that we're responsible for, even some of the ones where the teams have all the members, those repositories still have a bunch of legacy teams associated with them or member access associated with them. So we're still not at the point where we have like all of the access to those repositories routing through the like working group relevant user management stuff. We do have a GitHub project board that we've been playing around with a little bit, but it's not currently the source of truth on what we're actually working on. I think we haven't quite found, well, we haven't spent a lot of effort on trying to make it actually a source of truth on what people are working on. I think people are mostly still continuing to work on like however they were prioritizing work previous to the new governance model. I think the one case where a lot of this stuff is kind of on the bleeding edge as far as our working group goes is the CAPI team, because the CAPI team has members from, or the CAPI area has members from both SAP and VMware. We've kind of had to build a lot stronger foundation presence there. So they're actually doing, I think bi-weekly office hour meeting style things. They actually have all of their members on their team, and that team has access to all of the relevant repositories. There's still a bunch of other cruft for a lot of those repositories, so it's not 100% there. I guess I'll say one more thing and then I'll pause for questions. I think one of the prompt items from the Slack message was, are you onboarding contributors or are you losing contributors? I think right now we don't have a process in place for figuring out how people become contributors or approvers. I think we recognize that we need to either establish some sort of process for doing that, or we need to rely on the TOC for providing that. We were kind of hoping that another working group would figure it out for us and we could just like copy whatever they did, but that, to my knowledge, that hasn't happened yet. So for now, we're kind of in a spot where like we have onboarded a few approvers, mostly just through, oh, we forgot to add this person. Like, let's just like file a GitHub request and be like, yeah, we totally would have included them in the original charter. We also, I definitely have some contributors who have, or some approvers who are probably not active approvers anymore because they've switched teams or left their company or whatever. So I think we're definitely starting to get to the point where we probably need to build some more structure or inherit some more structure around how those approver roles are managed. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we are. That said, I'm not aware of us actively building a pool of contributors or approvers like that. So even if we had an onboarding process, I'm not sure if we'd actually be able to execute it. So I think that's another area where we don't really know where we're going as far as actively cultivating a contributor or approver base.
Silence. Do you think there's anything we from the TOC side could do to help to push that forward, to get faster to some means there? I'm actually I don't think we could, but like if you had an idea.
I mean, I think there's like the general question of, I think a lot of these decisions are being like, I guess, like federalized to the different working groups to kind of figure out what we're doing. But I think a lot of us have to kind of make the same decisions along the way of like, okay, how are we going to manage team access? How are we going to like manage users climbing the like contributor to approver ladder and that kind of stuff? So it seems like there's some opportunities for collaboration there, not necessarily the TOC saying, hey, working groups, you have to like do all these things in this way. But yeah, I think like there may be some opportunity for at least like, okay, working groups, why don't we, the like theme of this month is figuring out access. Like, why don't all of you try to figure out access, and we have a like soft deadline to figure that out by this time or something like that. And then that actually forces the working groups to make progress on that area. I think the dance that I found myself in has largely been like, okay, I recognize this is a problem, but things are continuing to work under the old scheme just by like legacy of project management and legacy of team access and stuff like that. So I'll just like wait for another working group to figure this out, and then I'll just copy whatever they did. But so far, I guess with maybe the exception of the platform working group, I think there hasn't been a lot of forward progress on any one of those areas. So I think it's biased us a little bit towards inaction.
Greg, when you say that you're unsure how people become contributors or approvers, is that you're unsure about like what the criteria should be or are? Or
I think the criteria is very clear. I think it's all the like processes around like how do we actually operationalize that? I think, you know, we theoretically we have a combination of like people who work at, you know, the major foundation members, and they largely get folded in by joining a team in their company. And then it's like, okay, well, they're now a member of this like corporate team. And so we're going to like push them up through the process until we think that they meet the criteria. And then even at that point, I think at this point, it would just be a generic pull request to be like, hey, this person has like achieved this, but I'm not aware of anywhere where we have like an operational guide for how to actually do that. So I don't know if that's something that's supposed to be figured out at the working group level or something that we have a broader like policy on. But then there's also kind of, I imagine, another category of people who we would want to be contributors or even approvers, where their organization they work with is like not that invested necessarily in Cloudfoundry or the Cloudfoundry Foundation, but they like personally are interested in being a contributor and have the skills to be a contributor. And at that point, like outside of that organizational drive, like I don't even know how we would find those people or like what that like onboarding funnel would look like. I guess like they could open a GitHub issue and be like, hey, I want to be a contributor or something like that, but we don't have anywhere telling them to do that. So I think like a lot of these cases seems like the path I would take is opening a I forget my noun here, but opening some sort of proposal either at the working group level or at the TOC level for being like, okay, here's our like operationalized process for getting people to move through the contributor approver state machine. But I haven't taken the effort to do that yet. So I guess like, waiting on I don't think any of the stuff needs to be done by the TOC, but having some like loose framework for getting the different working groups to actually think about these problems and hopefully like, if not come up with the same solution, at least like rely on each other to come up with some of these solutions, I think might be helpful. Because for right now, there's like maybe half a dozen things I have to figure out. I'll figure them out eventually, but for right now, it's fairly easy to ignore them because a lot of these processes are continuing to work based on the old scheme. Like at some point, I'm going to have to go in and be like, all right, we're going to like have a giant purge where we clear out access to all these repositories. But right now, I've been postponing that just because it's going to cause like a lot of problem, or at least be a lot of work, if not cause a lot of problems. And I don't see a lot of benefit right now from doing that because things are like working as they're working. So.
Yeah, one thing that occurs to me, I don't know if you've been following any of the work, I guess it's primarily in the community repository about standardizing on a declarative description of the whole CF org and its membership and teams and things. Like Ruben's largely been leading that and coordinating with us on the TOC.
I have not been following that.
Okay, so I wonder if that might help. That would at least give a source of truth for the whole organization to tell people to PR against. And then we also just accepted this RFC that's, I think, more clearly delineating who's responsible for adding and removing people as members of the GitHub org, which is roughly analogous to that contributor's status within the community here. And that refers
to mention the
oh yeah, go ahead, Jan.
The PR that we just decided to merge, right? The like get away from dry run to actually doing things.
Right.
I think we still decided to not mandate user management for working groups that way. I'm not sure though. And maybe we should align with the working group leads if they agree that this is a good thing that everyone should just follow. And then like I see the potential fallout of just removing every legacy stuff. On the other hand side, it might be the main incentive for getting people to just once do it, right? And if working group leads and maybe TOC members are like actually on standby for, just tell me, right? If you now lost access to a repo you should have access to, and it's part of the working group charter definition, whatever, that you should, then it's an easy thing to just give you back these permissions when we have the automation in place. If that's worth it, yeah, I don't know. Like maybe that's still give people some time to solve this without actually being blocked out for even an hour or whatever until these things are resolved. Then on the non-technical level, not sure if I got everything correctly. Like in terms of there are CFF member organizations what I think we should keep an eye on is that even if somebody joins a corporate team, that we don't just add people to the approvers list by having them joining the team, but actually like applying the same criteria that would apply for somebody coming from wherever they come. Shouldn't be that much of a problem, I guess, like because there are existing approvers, and by actually working on those repos, you should, like, if you actually joined a corporate team that works some part of their time on the open source projects, it should be rather quick, right? If you are like kind of a corporate member of this to actually reach those criteria. But I think that would be discouraging for people that are outside of vendors that are members of the CFF if this would be too quickly.
Yeah, and
like if I imagine I open my 4th PR and then somebody who has not a single commit kind of starts commenting, declining or whatever my PRs, I would wonder what kind of openness there is. So that's maybe a rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I guess with finding external contributors, it's going to be, you know, looking for those PRs that are coming in from forks of the repository, people that don't have the committer access, looking for people that have put in a few bug fixes that they've found over time, and inviting them in.
Yep,
And
I would say
in
that
terms of where we find, sorry, Stephan, go on.
Yeah, I think one of the currently pending PRs is this YAML file workgroup definition. I think that's a very valuable input. I'm not so sure about this automation that goes with this huge magic file that was somehow generated. I doubt that this can be maintained over time. I would hope that eventually we can derive that from the workgroup definitions, the access rights that would help. There might be some input from our side in the near future. There are 2 repositories that should move over from Cloudfoundry Incubator to Cloudfoundry in the Capi area, and we have a different set of access rights. That's something where we can exercise a little bit the team management, etc. They are non-critical, so it's nothing gets blocked. And I would say that in, let's say, something around 3 months or so, we would probably have 1 or 2 additional approver candidates in the Capi area, where we can then also try out how these processes works. And there's no urgency inside, so we have a working model that works, and we would try to bypass anything. No, there's no need for that. It works pretty well. So
yeah, I guess as far as like the access management stuff goes, like I think the one thing operationally that has kind of gotten in the way a bit there, besides people not being in the Cloudfoundry org, was also just in order to add repositories to a team in the org, you need to be admin for that repository. So that was easy for all of the project areas that I was sneakily an admin on from my previous access. But that does mean, especially for like a lot of the projects that were outside of the area I was working on, I effectively have to rely on other people in order to do that. I've been procrastinating actually making forward progress on that, but I suspect the right path there is for some time for me to sit down with TOC to actually go through the process of populating all those teams with all the appropriate repositories. But that was definitely a barrier as I was going through the process of making those GitHub teams, was that I didn't actually have access to a lot of the repositories falling under those.
I mean, this one, I guess as a working group lead, you should probably be admin in all the relevant repositories. So if then we just need to find whoever will set that wherever, like maybe it's the huge list that currently exists, but I guess the working group leads should actually be admins in their corresponding repositories. I don't know if we ever put that somewhere in text, but like,
we were going to make teams for each of the. Yeah, we were going to make teams for each of the working group leads, which might just have one person in them.
Yeah.
and assign them all the
I have
repos.
that, so it's kind of a chicken and egg because I have that working group leads team, but I can't add it as admin to the repositories because I'm not admin
No,
in those repositories.
No. We were going to do that, like Ruben or Chris, or like somebody who was doing automation or was going to do it by hand, was going to do that. So we didn't do that, it sounds like. But it sounds like we created the teams. We just didn't fully collect all the repositories and put them under it. So is that going to part of the big YAML file automation? The adding of the working group leads as admins of all of those repos or not?
I believe that is part of that one.
So that should happen when we're not on dry run mode, but we turned off dry run mode. No, we haven't turned off dry run mode.
No, we
right? Because
haven't.
we're too scared. Yeah.
Well, Ruben wanted us to merge RFC 0002 first, so he could then go, these are the people that then have the authority to merge in the appropriate PRs. So now we've got that bit codified, he can now finish the last bits of the automation.
Then I could offer one new working group where we can test everything from scratch with completely new people. That's
And one last thought on the non-technical aspects and on like non-vendor contributors. One thing, like, I don't know if there are any people interested in becoming contributors, but one thing that could be an idea is to actually prioritize PRs coming from non-vendors higher than like the actual thing that's happening in there would maybe justify as an incentive to, yeah, you know what, you can actually join. Like, I don't know if that really helps. I think even in the past seen like the Cloudfoundry organization is something that I would call corporate open source, in terms of there are some huge companies that joined efforts and have open source licenses, but it's the main contributor force actually comes by having them in teams that's it, like it's just their work to work on CF. So maybe there's just not that much to actually get, at least right now. Would be nice to get into that direction, but I don't actually expect many PRs coming in from independent individuals.
Anything else that you'd like to throw in our direction, Greg?
Not yet, I don't think. I think, you know, I think there's definitely, I think we're still in the transition period. I think once we get more firmly comfortable working under the new governance model, then I think there'll probably be another round of perspective once we're actually working on that. I think we haven't run into this problem yet because, again, we don't have we don't really have a functioning open roadmap yet. I think, especially for this working group, it has such a eclectic group of teams that I think I'm a bit curious what a like combined roadmap would look like. Just because there are so many teams under it, and a lot of those teams are like, while kind of operating in the same space, do have like fairly diverse interests. So I think initially that's just going to be kind of a bucket of, or, you know, a giant semi-prioritized bucket of open source issues and PRs. I'm not sure how easy it'll be to pull out a more, you know, cohesive, you know, summation of that. But we don't have that problem yet, so we'll complain to you when we have more concrete problems around that one.
Okay, cool. has anyone got anything else?
I guess we do need to arrange for the next working group discussion for next week. I think technically App Runtime platform is next in the list, but I know Amelia's been on vacation and is just getting back that day, so it might not be particularly fair to have her have to prepare for that. Maybe foundational infrastructure, if Ruben and Behan think they could be ready in time. They might be a good candidate since they've been pretty far along in terms of operations.
I think that makes sense. They're Ruben today, so we can't ask him in here, but we can tag him on Slack and see if he's in. But we really want both of them, to your point.
Okay, yeah, that seems perfectly sensible to me.
Yeah, and thank you, Greg. We appreciate you diving in, being the first candidate for one of these discussions and raising a lot of these concerns. That's very valuable to hear about. Try and get some of this stuff resolved.
Yeah,
Yes,
no problem.
thank you.
I'm always happy to come before the Inquisition.
Hopefully it's not so much an inquisition and more a friendly coffee. Although do have a nosy through in the community repo, because I think that should hopefully iron out and answer an awful lot of things that have cropped up. But,
actually, I think the traffic on the community repo is not that high, so maybe we should recommend to working group leads to kind of watch that repo. I think it's not that high amount of traffic there. Like unless you actually do not track GitHub notifications at all yet, then it's going to be a burden, of course.
True. So that probably is worth having a nudge on. Okay. So, has anyone got anything else for this week? Okay. So, actions were a little bit. Oh,
sorry, Lee. Just one thing. So there's a cab call lined up for this week, and the topic of discussion is to be around the jammy jellyfish stem cell, what it can and cannot do. So if folks are interested in hopping on the cab call on Wednesday, then people are invited. And if folks want to pass the message along, I'd really appreciate that as well. I'll send out some emails to like CF devs and post on some other places, but just FYI. And Ruben's going to be doing a lot of the talking, and I'll just MC as usual. So just I wanted to add that.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so just looking actions for this week then. So I'm going to chase up again on the YAML accessibility side in there. Chris, you're going to continue with the legal discussions that are going on. Who fancies having a chat with Ruben and Behan to see if they're available? Okay, David's on that one.
Yep, I'll do it like I did with Greg in the Slack channel right now.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. Next week. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that sums up everything for this week, unless anyone's got anything last minute. Okay. Well, have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll catch you in the not too distant.
Thank you.
Bye.